The system is broken. We all get it. Mayorkas, to some extent, will admit the system's broken, not the border. You guys are using your power to do this. But how do we, in less than 20 days, solve, like, what is it that what does winning look like to you?
That's a difficult question.
Is it?
Because the Senate is the stopgap for President Biden.
Sure.
They're protecting President Biden.
100%.
They've already added to the appropriations bills. They want to spend more than what the Republican bills that have yet to pass the House read. So this is the issue. How do we get them to enforce anything? I mean, right now, I just came out of conference and we're talking about simply passing something out of the House and considering that a win. I'm not sure I consider that a win.
But this is what I'm getting at. If the Senate comes to you, if McCarthy comes to you and says, okay, I need to go talk to them. What is our red line? What are our 5 top demands? What does that look like? Because I think that's if it's the Senate first and then the president, I get it.
I don't have an answer for you. I will. But don't
you think that we need to?
I would love to, but it's back to the question of how do we get the president to do something?
Right. But that's
because we can message all day. We've messaged for 8 months, Sean, and nothing is happening.
I get it. And that's the problem. And I'm with you on this. This is a frustration that I think finally blue states and blue cities are feeling. But I get, to me, what the frustrating part is, you guys have the power of the purse. And the funny part is 9 times out of 10 in Washington, it's too much money that they have and we're trying to rein it in. In this case, we almost want to give them more and say, well, you do your job.
But no, the HR2 had added 3,000 agents. 19,000 to 22,000 border control agents. I'm like, that's fine. But if you don't let them do their job,
right. That's the point. That you could have 1 million agents. If you tell them that they have to stand there and watch these folks walk in our country.
Open the gate.
Open the gate. In Arizona, they literally welded it open.
Right.
But see, so I guess what I'm getting at is, from a conservative standpoint, don't we have to go to the American people? Because this gets back to impeachment as well. I think that where we lose a lot of times is on the messaging, is that we can't make a concrete argument to the American people and say, this is what we have. You are 100% right. The American people, both in terms of immigration, people coming into their cities and overwhelming them. Number 2, on the fentanyl. Number 3, the stories they hear for national security, sex trafficking. Boom, boom, boom. But then I always joke that I look at elected officials like the cable man, okay? If you have cable and you call the cable man, you go, my cable's out. And they go, we come fix it. You don't want them to give you an excuse and tell you, oh, here's the problem, the wire up there. You go, I pay for cable, fix it. The way I look at elected officials sometimes is, we elected you, tell me how you're fixing the problem, not why you can't. And
in this case, the frustration in the American people, and I'm talking about blue districts, red districts, across the nation, I'm hearing that everybody over the August recess, August work period, they heard frustration and 100%. Anger from their constituents.
But that's the point, is that you're absolutely right.
We need to follow the American people and get serious
but
about
let's go back to my cable story. That when I call the cable guy, I don't want to go, I'm frustrated too, my cable's out. I want to say, tell me how you're making sure that when I turn on my TV, it's fixed, right? I pay for it. So I say, hey, I elected all these members. I helped put through a Republican Congress. Tell me what you're going to force the president to do, because if it comes down to the wire, right? Just flash forward, October 1st, the government shuts down. The White House is going to have a list of talking points, 10 pages long, and say, this is what the Republicans have cost us. Our security is at risk. Border agents can't do their job. TSA is going to let anybody through with more than 3 ounces, whatever. And we're going to sit there. And so I think that the Republicans need to come up with a list and saying, this is what we demand the Biden administration do if we're going to force, if they want, the funding for this.
I think that's an excellent idea, because we have got to just say we're not going to do it. Why would we fund the DHS when they are at war with the American people with the border? Why would we fund them? That's the question.
But don't you think the thing that I find fascinating is we just ticked off like 5 things: sex trafficking, fentanyl.
Right.
Okay. Every city is now feeling a glimpse of what Texas and Arizona feels.
Only a glimpse.
Only a glimpse. I mean, they're freaking out. They're like wetting their beds because they're like, oh my God, 3 buses came. You guys have 3 buses an hour, or probably
at least.
And yet we're having a discussion about the Secretary of Homeland Security saying, it's secure. There are things that I would have assumed. I get the funding on education, on certain other aspects of government. This is one that I would have said,
But the American people, they understand the funding problem. We're broke today. We're borrowing everything we're spending, frankly, as of here to the end of the year.
Right.
But what they do understand is the tyranny of the federal government. So whatever we demand, I think it's got to be a change in the Biden administration, because they don't care about the law. They don't care about Congress. They don't care about the border. I think the border is an excellent example. But until we get ahead of the game and go on offense with our messaging, because you're exactly right. What Republicans normally do is they sit back and they take the blows.
And they're about to do it again.
I don't think we ought to take the blows. I think we ought to say, we are going to demand that the president do something, because that's the problem. It's not the law. It's the president.
We always talk about female voters, suburban voters in big elections, and how are they going to sway? And there is not a suburban voter in America right now that doesn't understand the impact of the fentanyl crisis. Okay. So much of this is coming through our borders, coming from China. And yet that's not even something that we have a bipartisan outrage about. Right. This, to me, is something Republicans could jam in the face of this administration. I was blown away the other day when I read that the Biden White House is going to accuse Republicans, if they shut down the government, of allowing the fentanyl crisis to fester. Wow. They're going to turn the page and say, it's your fault because we had an open border and you're not allowing us to fund government right now. But they're going on offense. And that's where I feel like Republicans right now need to be jamming this and saying, we can, here's our plan. We want to ensure that, you don't just hire them, that they're allowed to enforce this, that we reenact, remain in Mexico. But I think that we have to have a list of 3 or 4 things that's very simple, that the American people say, I agree with 100% of that. And I couldn't imagine why anybody would be against it.
The list is easy.
Let's go.
How do we get the president to do the list? The list is easy. I mean, I talk about it every time I talk to my constituents. We've got the fentanyl coming across. The sex trafficking is now more lucrative than the drug trade. Think about that. Not only women, boys and girls are now in indentured servanthood or the sex trade. This has got to stop.
Yes.
This is an existential threat. What about the Chinese military-age males coming across? Thousands of them. But we have to force the president. I'm open to suggestions. The list is easy, Sean. How do we get the president?
Well, I think the list you're asking, here's how I would do it. I think get the Republican Congress. And I know not everyone's on the same page because everyone feels the same pain that Texas and Arizona and some others feel. I'd say here are the top 4 things, maybe 3, that we all, I don't care if you live in Maine, Kansas, or Texas, we can agree that we have to, reenact remain in Mexico. We have to ensure that you can't enter if you don't. Come up with 3 things, 4. I don't care. But a minimum of 3, something that every American could say, I don't care how left-wing lunatic liberal you are, saying that makes sense. Right. Okay. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure you click the link below to find out more, or you can go to SeanSpicerShow.com to stay up to date on all my content.